Okay, so we're on Yud Aleph Amid Beis, about two-thirds of the way down. We're at 11b3. So we're in the middle of this discussion about uh, if when she would lose the ksuva, when she wouldn't lose the ksuva. So I guess I'll just read from the bottom of 11b2. So Brisa said, Ketzav Shemra. What's the case of Moti Shemra? So Moti Shemra is a man is saying that his wife was not a virgin and she was supposed to be a virgin. So now we're on the top of 11b3. Bala based in V'amar Ploni Amar Ploni Lo Tosi B'cha B'sulam. He said, so and so, your daughter was not a virgin. If there's witnesses that she committed adultery, meaning under him, meaning before the chuppah, but after he had given her the ring, she gets a 100 coin ksuva. So the Gemara questions: if there's witnesses that she committed adultery, then she gets killed to death. She gets stoned by the Beis Din. So hachikamar, the brisa can't be correct. So hachikamar, this is what the brisa must have said. If there's witnesses that she, so again, our context was the blood on the sheets. Is that a good sign of blood, or the absence of that? What's enough to show that that he's believed? Zinsa kara yeshuk suvamana. But if she had had a relationship beforehand, meaning outside of marriage, but before he ever gave her the ring, she does have a ksuva of 100 zuz. And based on this, Reb Chia bar Rabin said in the name of Reb Sheshes that even though he married a woman with the presumption and assumption that she was a virgin and she would have therefore received a ksuva worth 200 coins, and it ended up that she wasn't a virgin, they stay married, but she only gets a ksuva of 100 coins. Umasiv Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman asked, Hanosi esa ishav lamatzla besulim, ki omers misha arastani nasdi v'nistach b'sadehu, v'omer li lo ki ela ad shelo isartich, v'haya mechi mekach taos, v'leis laklau. So there's a Mishnah we're going to see soon that if someone gets married to a woman and she wasn't a virgin, and she says, I was raped after we got engaged, and therefore, I think we had it on like that base on the base or Gillam base. Your field got flooded, meaning you were just a victim of bad luck. But I deserve my ksuva, and he says no. You lost your virginity on purpose before. Well, I don't know on purpose, but you were not. I would say, does it mean that she was raped or that it was consensual? That's what I mean. It doesn't say. But it was before my engagement, so therefore I should have known. You should have told me about it. If I would have known, I wouldn't have given you the ring, and therefore my taking you as a wife was mistaken, because if I would have known the facts, I wouldn't have done this, and therefore you don't deserve any ksuba because it was a marriage that I would not have joined into had I known this. Is it possible that Rav Amram and all the leaders of the generation, the Gedolim, maybe not leaders, but the Gedolim, and they had a question, Vishani, and they answered, "My mekach tos nami mimasayim." What does it mean that my acquisition was a mistake, so therefore it doesn't count? That's from a 200 zuz of Amana Islach, but I'm still willing to give you 100 coins. And you, Rava says that she doesn't have a ksuba at all. But Rava says, Man de kamosiv shaper kamosiv. The one who asked a good question. Mekach tos lagamri mashma. Because the word mekach tos means the entire kinyan. So a kinyan means an active acquisition. The entire acquisition was in error, and when you joined into a contract or a deal to do something, and the material facts were wrong, you can claim the deal is completely off. the word mekaftos implied that there is no wedding at all. Not that the wedding that the act of marriage stays effective, just that the ksuva that she receives is only 100 coins instead of 200. The word mekaftos implies that the whole deal is off. There's no marriage. But if you want to ask ve'ela kashahaf, but this is a question against his opinion. He said that she would get. Rabbi said that he would have no ksuva, and this still says that she would have a ksuva of 100, like a woman who had been married previously. So trid tzvei mahachi. So you reinterpret the brisa and say that this is what the brisa had to have said. If there's witnesses that she committed adultery after he had given her the ring, then she gets killed by Beis Din. Zintamei karav lo klum. If she had committed adultery, so it wasn't adultery, but she wasn't a besula at the time that he gave her the ring, and she didn't inform him, then lo klum. She doesn't get any ksuva at all, because he wouldn't have married her had she been given him the facts. But if she's found that she lost her besulim because of an injury to an inanimate object like wood, she does receive a ksuva of 100 zuz, because she didn't lose her virginity to a person. So now after all this, but Rava is the one who said that according to the Rabbanan, if he didn't know that she had lost her virginity, even to an inanimate object that caused her the injury, Rava says that she doesn't get any ksuva. Based on what he just said right now, what we just saw a couple lines ago, according to Rava, he was saying that she would receive a partial ksuva. But we had said originally that Rava said that she doesn't get a ksuva, but that he retracted. So we see that Rava must have retracted from his earlier statement that she would receive no ksuva at all. From this discussion, he clearly held that she got a ksuva of 100. So we see that Rava changed his mind, and in the final analysis, he said that she would get a ksuva of 100 coins. Okay, so now we're the 11b4, the top of the second column. It's the third line from the bottom, last word on Yud Aleph on the base. We just learned in the brisa, kinsa rishon l'shum nisuin, v'yesha edim shelo nisra. So let's say that she had been married. The husband brought her to the chuppah to do the second stage of marriage, but v'yesha edim shelo nisra. There's witnesses that they never did yichud. They were never alone in a room together. Inami nisra of loshasa k'debia, or they were in a room, but they were in there for 30 seconds. There was no way that the marriage could have been consummated. Now, where does the time for this come up? It's a shaila of yichud. So I heard it in the context of in Mei Hasharim, not that there's elevators in Mei Hasharim, but the shir was in Mei Hasharim. If you're in somewhere else that has an elevator, what would be the amount of time it would be yichud? And some opinion must have been from Bnei Brak said 45 seconds, which is very difficult to, that 45 seconds together with a man and a woman is enough time for something to happen. So that was a very unbelievable opinion. That I guess the minhag Bnei Brak, whatever, they would say 45 seconds. Right. So the other, taking away those type of shitas, I think the minimum time was 2 minutes, and then the shaila is how long does a chassan and kala need to do yichud for yichud, not just to say that they were secluded for enough time for something for them to consummate the marriage, not that they do, and the custom is to do 10 minutes of yichud. Maybe some places do 15, but I think the custom is to do 10 minutes of yichud. But we're saying, but if we have witnesses that they didn't have much time together, ein hasheni yachalit antainas besulim, even though there's witnesses that seem to say that there's no way that her first marriage was consummated. When she got remarried, the second husband is not allowed to say I thought that she would have been a virgin, and she's not a virgin, and therefore he would, the ksuva that he would be obligated to her would only be 100, does not 200. He's not believed. Sharei kinsa rishon, because even though we don't know for sure that the marriage was ever consummated, but the act of chuppah took place, which is more than just the act of giving the ring. Because once the act of chuppah took place, then the assumption is the marriage gets consummated and they're going to live as husband and wife, which they're not allowed to do after they give the ring. Here we go to Yud Beis Amud Aleph. Amar Rabba, Zoso Meris, Kinsa B'Cheskes B'Sulam Nitzos B'Ula Yeshuk Subamana. Rabba says from here we see that if he married her under the presumption that she is a virgin and it ends up that she's not a virgin, she still retains her ksuva. Rav Ashi Amar, but Rav Ashi rejected this. Maybe I would say no, she doesn't deserve any ksuva at all in such a situation. Since they had done chuppah, maybe I'm oversimplifying because there's many different shitos of what chuppah is, but let's assume because the first husband did chuppah with her, maybe. Normally, a woman would not receive a ksuva at all in such a situation. But in this case, because there was a chuppah, you had no right to assume that she was a virgin, and therefore she still retains a ksuva. But in general, she wouldn't. So the Gemara says, but maybe for the first husband, the second husband, maybe she had committed adultery after he gave her the ring, and so maybe she would still be a besula from the first marriage, which was never consummated. But maybe the husband should go to Beis Din because maybe he really wouldn't be allowed to stay married to her because there's a halacha that if the woman committed adultery, she's not allowed to stay with her husband, and neither is she allowed to when she gets divorced, she's not allowed to go marry the adulterer or the other man either. So maybe how come we said that Ein Hasheni the last line of the previous summit, we say that the husband, she's definitely allowed to stay married to her second husband just with the ksuva. Maybe she committed adultery while she was engaged to the second husband. So Amarav Shravya Kagon Chakita Shabala Alter. So this would be a case where he gave her the ring and then they immediately did the chuppah. So there was no intervening time where she could have committed adultery during her engagement to the second husband. So if she was in a besula, it had to have been from the first marriage or something prior to that. Some the discussion we just had, some said that it went had that discussion from the starting point of a Mishnah. I think it was actually our Mishnah. A virgin or a widow or a divorcee or someone who received chalitza, meaning the woman, she had been married to her husband, but he died and they didn't have kids and she had to do chalitza. But these three women, or four women, I should say, was after they had done chuppah, they only have a 100 coin ksuva. And when they get remarried, the new husband isn't allowed to say, oh, she wasn't a virgin. Because since they had chuppah already, the presumption is that she's not a virgin anymore. So what's the case of a virgin from after Nisuin? Nisuin means after the chuppah, the second stage of marriage. So the Gemara says, it must be she must have had a chuppah, but was not, but the marriage was never consummated. So Amar Rabba deduced from this, that if you married her with the presumption that she's a virgin and she ends up that she's not a virgin, she only gets 100 coin ksuva, not the full 200. Rav Ashi Amar Liolam Eim Lecha Ba'ama Leis LaKlal V'Shani HaChashrei Nichnasu LeChuppah. maybe I would say that normally, if she wasn't a virgin when the presumption was she wouldn't have any ksuva at all. But our mission is different because she had been married before and had chuppah before. So therefore, there's no presumption of that she's a besula, and therefore she retains a ksuva of 100 zuz. So then the Gemara asks, why is she allowed to stay married to him? Maybe she committed adultery after he had given her the ring. Amar Rav Shravya, Kagon Shekiddush Bala Alter. So Rav Shravya says, because maybe for the second husband, he gave her the ring, and then immediately they had the chuppah. So they didn't wait the year in between. So there was no time that she could have committed adultery while she was engaged there. So according to the first version of this, they said it based on the Brisa, they certainly apply it to the Mishnah also. The one who learned that Rava had said this based on that Mishnah, they would not say the same thing from the Brisa, because the Brisa was talking about a case where she had the chuppah, but witnesses tell us that they were never in a room together. They were never in a room together for more than 2 minutes. So it's impossible that the marriage could have been consummated. So in that case, you could make the argument is that since I have witnesses, I really thought that she wasn't a besula. She was still a besula. She was still a virgin. So therefore, that if you learned the statement of Rabbi was on the Brisa, it might be a little different than the case of the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is saying she was a besula from and she had chuppah, but she's still a besula, but it didn't mention witnesses. So that's the difference between learning the case from the Mishnah or learning it from the Brisa. Okay, Mishnah 12a2. So we saw this Mishnah before, quoted in the Gemara. If someone ate in his in-laws' house, meaning he was engaged, and so he went to the house of his fiancée, of her parents, in the region of Yehuda. So when we say Yehuda here, it's kind of similar to what we learned in the Hilchos Shvius, the Hilchos Shmita, about the regions of Yehuda and Galil and Avery Yarden. So Yehuda, Shaloba Edom, and there weren't any other witnesses, no one else. That man is not allowed to claim that his wife was not virgin and he thought she would be, because in Yehuda they do something so that, or they do something. They have the husband and the engaged couple do yichud together. So some Rishonim say that they didn't do it because they wanted anything untoward, if I use that word, to happen, but it's just to make them emotionally more attached to each other and looking forward to the wedding. But since a yichud would have happened, so the man is not allowed to claim, oh, you weren't a virgin, I'm not gonna pay you 200 zuz ksuba. Gemara, so because the Mishnah says ha'ochel, if someone ate, that means that it's not a blanket statement. There's some places in Yehuda where they did this, and some places in Yehuda where they don't do it. So Amar Abaye, Shmamina, Yehuda nami kamos, yay. So Abaye says, yes, we can learn from this Mishnah that in Yehuda it's not a blanket statement. If you're from a region, a sub-region within Yehuda, within the bigger region of Yehuda, that they have the chasanit over there, then we assume that the yichud took place. But if it's in a sub-region of Yehuda where they don't have this practice, so then there's no assumption that there was a yichud, and therefore that husband would still be allowed to claim that she wasn't a besula, and perhaps he would be believed and not have to pay her the full ksuba. Hidatanya, and this is in line with what we learned in the Brisa. So Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, "Yehuda b'rishona hayim miyachtin es achatzon v'es akalasha achaz kodem kinason l'chopa k'dei shiyu libo gasba." In Yehuda, originally they used to have the chassan and kala do yichud an hour before the chuppah, in order that his heart would be very much desirous of her. And in the Galil, they did not do this. In Yehuda, they used to have two good friends. How does that actually translate it? They say attendants. So I mean, in other translations, sometimes you see is like a bridesmaid and a groomsmaid and a groomsman. That there's a very close friend, but these Shoshvinan would be a little bit older, and they would have already have been married to give certain types of advice and instructions to the chassan and the kala. So the article translates it to actually examine. So it doesn't mean literally examine, but Rashi says neither of them should try to pull a trick, that she wouldn't bring a cloth that had a blood stain on it already because she knew that she wouldn't be able to make a blood stain, or the husband would bring an extra clean cloth in there, or sheet in there, to claim, oh, that the sheet was that there was no blood on it, but meanwhile the sheet really did, and he threw that out and no one could find it. So because of some type of a shenanigans like this, they had two shoshvinan in Yehuda to try to reduce the chance of any fraud. And in the Galil they didn't do this. Yehuda, a third difference in the practice. These shoshvinin would stay in the same house that the chassan kala were in. And in the Galil they did not do this. And if you didn't follow this practice, you couldn't claim that she wasn't a besula. Meaning in Yehuda, in the places where they did this, you would need to have attendants, and I use the article word, even though that's not a great word, and they would need to stay in the house the whole time also. You couldn't just have, let's say, the Shoshvinan inspect them, but they go into the house and then leave. Part of it is that they would have to stay overnight in that house also. So ahaya. So which one of these three things, if they don't get done, the way I just explained it, you need all three. But which ahaya, on which one of these cases does the Gemara say, if you didn't do this, the husband can't claim that she wasn't a besula? If it's on the very first case, meaning of that in Yehuda they would do yichud, it should have said kol shenag, whoever did this. But again, this says v'chol shelo nohag k'minhag hazeh, whoever did not do this. So if they did yichud, the problem would be if by doing yichud he's not allowed to claim that she's not a besula. The Mishnah would have had to say, or the Brisa should have said, kol shenag, whoever did this, whoever did yichud, they had the chassan and the kala were together an hour before the chuppah, then they wouldn't be able to claim. So it can't kol shelo nohag can't be talking about the first case. Ela seifa, so it must say that it's on the second case about having the shoshvinin. But kol shalom mushmash bi ba'alei. It shouldn't say lo shalom nahag, whoever practiced. It says whoever los no mishmash, whoever was not checked by the shoshvina. It doesn't say who practiced. So it doesn't make sense with what case in the Mishnah would be talking about. So Amar Abaye says liolam areisha. It's talking about the first case. Vitani kol shanag, and change the text of the brisa of kol shalom nahag, whoever did not act in this way. Take out the word not, and it says whoever acted in this way, that they had the yichud of the chassan kala before the wedding, he cannot claim that she wasn't a besula. Amar le Rava, but Rava says v'ha kol shalom nahag tani. but the Brisa says kol shelo nahag. So it seems that Rava was he didn't, for whatever reason, he did not want to change the text of the Brisa. So Elam Rava says Hachi Ka'amar. This is what the Brisa means. Kol shelo nahag mina galil begalil. Whoever didn't follow the normal practice of the Galil in the Galil. Elamina Yehuda begalil. But if they followed the practice of Yehuda in Galil, eno yachol liton tanas besulim, then he loses out his opportunity to claim that she wasn't a besula and she doesn't deserve her ksuva of 200 zuz. So Rava's explanation is that if you did the practice of Yehuda in Galil, you have the same status as if you would have been in Yehuda. Ravashi gives a third explanation of to answer up the question. Liolama Sefer, really talking about the last case about having the shoshvinin. Vitani kol shalom mushmash. So he changed one word because the Brisa says kol shalo nahag kamina gazet. Whoever did not do according to this. So Abaye wanted to take out the word shalo, not, and so Ravashi is just changing the word shalo nahag is shalo mushmash. Whoever was not checked by the shoshvina. So, would Rava disagree with Ravashi's? Now, Ravashi was after the time of Rava, but it could be, if you was the word yes or no, it could be that Rava would have said you wouldn't have made a mistake between yes and no. But if you change nahag to mushmash, maybe that mistake is more palatable. I mean, I'm just saying, would Rava, the way he rejected Abaye, would he reject Ravashi also? I don't know, but there's a subtle difference in the change of the text of the Mishnah that Abaye proposed because he took out a word no, which flips the meaning of it, whereas Ravashi changed the word kol shelo nahag to kol shelo mushmash. Whoever didn't practice to whoever wasn't checked by the shushvina. Okay, so I mean these sugyas aren't exactly super exciting. Keep going, okay? Mishnah: Achas almana Yisrael v'achas almanas kohanim ksuvos and mana. Whether it's a widow of a regular Yisrael, meaning a non-Kohen, or whether it's a widow of Kohanim, they have a ksuva of 100. Based in Shal Kohanim hayu goven lebesula arba miyozuz v'lamicha biyadam chachamim. The basin of Kohanim used to collect the ksuva for a besula was 400 zuz, and the chachamim did not protest this. So when it says the widow of a Kohen, it doesn't mean the widow of a Kohen, but it means a widow from a Kohen family. Her father was a Kohen. And we'll see the difference is that the Kohanim were much more, their yichus was much more well-known and verifiable and verified. So it was kind of having an aristocracy, kind of. Right, pedigree. That's a definite, that's one of the translations of yichus. And when the Mishnah says that the Beit Din Shel Kohanim would collect 400, that means whenever a daughter of a Kohen would get married, she would get a ksuva of 400, even if she married a Yisrael, not just marrying another Kohen. Gemara, Tana v'almanos Kohanim ksuvos and Masayin. There's a brisa that said that a widow of a Kohen would receive a ksuva of 200 zuz. But we learned in a Mishnah, this Mishnah says that a widow of a Bas Kohen would have a ksuva of 100 zuz. So how come there's a brisa that says that she gets 200 zuz? That's in conflict with the Mishnah. So Ravashi says there were two different decrees. Originally, they said that a virgin daughter of a Kohen would get a 400 zuz ksuva a divorced or widowed one. Now it makes more sense to say widowed. We said that Rashi said it doesn't matter if it was if she was marrying a Kohen or a Levi or a non-Kohen. But we say Yisrael for this context, it just means non-Kohen. It would include a Levi. But actually, from the time of Ezra, the Levium seem to have been they intermarried at a very high rate and didn't come back to Eretz Yisrael when Ezra came up. But if we're talking about a Bas Kohen who was divorced, she could marry a Yisrael, but she couldn't marry a Kohen. And the fact that it keeps mentioning only Almana, that kind of implies a little bit that we're talking about a Bas Kohen who is marrying a Kohen, because a Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee, but he is allowed to marry a widow. And this only talks about the ksuva of a widow. When we learned from the brisa we started seeing last week, we spoke about an almana or a grusha or a chalutza, a woman who has been widowed or a woman who had divorced or a woman who had chalitza done. And chalitza, a woman who had chalitza done is the status of a divorced woman only midrabbanan on a rabbinic level, because she didn't actually have a get. So on a Torah level, a woman who had chalitza is not considered a grusha, and she would be allowed to marry a Kohen on a Torah level, but the Rabbanan said, no, she has the status of a divorcee, and she's not allowed to. So originally the decree was the daughter of a Kohen had besula had a 400 zuz ksuva. And if she was widowed, she would only have a 100 zuz ksuva. We turned the page to Yud Beis Amud Beis. But once they saw that the widowed Bas Kohanim were not getting such great shidduchim, or I mean, the literal translation is they were being disrespected or not treated properly. Takin Luhumasan, they decreed that the widows would have a 200 zuz ksuva. So it seems that, but the mizalzlim is that a 100, because remember, ksuva is to make it more difficult for the husband to divorce. But if it's only 100 zuz ksuva for this, they were still divorcing them at a higher rate than they should have. So then they decreed 200 zuz to help decrease the divorce rate, so these women would stay married and wouldn't be divorced. Another way, instead of having a shidduch crisis there, they had a divorce crisis. But then they saw that people stopped marrying widowed Bas Kohanim because the ksuva was more, because they said the Amri ad denasmin amanus kwanu nezel nezel besula Bas Yisrael, because people were saying for the same 200 zuz ksuva, instead of marrying a widowed Bas Kohen, I can marry a besula from a not Kohen family, Adranina Lamilsa. So then they undid their second takana and they restored the fact that that an Almana Bas Kohen would only get a ksuva of 100 zuz like any other widow. So their decree to stop the divorce crisis sparked the shidduch crisis. Then people weren't marrying almanas from a Kohen family. So it did spark a shidduch crisis. So then they had to change the ksuva to stop that crisis.
So they didn't have shidduch crisis, they had divorce crisis.
This context of this is talking about a divorce crisis. Whether they had shidduch crisis, this is not talking about it, so we can't make any conclusions. There's no data about it. So, meaning there's a joke. This joke is about 20 years old. They said they did that. The archaeologists said, we found in Rome, in Greece, we did excavations and we saw that they had dial-up internet. And in Rome, the archaeologists said they had DSL. And in Yerushalayim, they couldn't find any wires. So they must have had Wi-Fi. That's a joke that they said about 20 years ago. So just because there's no information about it doesn't mean that there was a problem. There wasn't. It's not talking about this, so we can't bring proof from something that's not talking about it. If you go to the doctor and he says, my knee hurts, does that mean that he doesn't have a toothache also? He wasn't going to the doctor, so he didn't mention his toothache. Okay, Beis Din Shel Kohanim, the court of Kohanim. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda said the name of Shmuel, Lo Basin Shel Kohanim Bavad Amru. This wasn't only the basin of Kohanim, Ella, Afilu Mishpachos Yuchasos B'Yisrael, Imratzu Lasos Gederech Shakonim Osim. If Miyuchas families who were Yisraelim, and because they were very proud of their fine lineage, if they wanted to also say, if you want to marry one of our daughters, you're going to have to pay 400 zuz for their ksuva osin. They could do that also. So this, when it says basin of kohanim, I don't know if it means individual batei din of kohanim, because there was a basin of kohanim. There's a Mishnah in, I think, might be in Midos, that obviously the Sanhedrin Agadol, obviously, but before when they were still in Yerushalayim, for up to 40 years before the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, and most of the Mishnayos were already after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so there was no sitting Sanhedrin anymore. But when there was, the Sanhedrin was still sitting in the Lishkas Hagazis, there were at least two other Batei Din on Harabayas. And one was, their job was to check out Kohanim and make sure that the Kohanim, that their mothers were all ksheros and not divorced, and not from converts and this and that, so that the Kohanim had proper yichus to do the avoda. So that was the job of one of those Batei Din. So I don't know when it says basin of Kohanim if it meant that particular basin, because I guess they wanted to safeguard their work since they did all this effort to vet and to investigate the lineage of all the Kohanim. They wanted it to stay good, so they made this decree. I don't know if it's talking about that basin or just means different Batei Din of Kohanim. Mesave, so they asked this. So we just saw Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel said that that mishpachos miyuchasos who weren't kohanim could also decide that they were only gonna require that their daughters get a bigger ksuva. Meisave harotza lasos kedech shakonim osin kigon bas Yisrael lekoin bas koin liyisrael osin. If someone wants to do like the kohanim do, that a Yisrael daughter is marrying a kohen, or a bas kohen is married to Yisrael osin, they can do that and give a bigger ksuva. But bas Yisrael lekoin or bas koin liyisrael. But if a Yisrael's daughter is marrying a Kohen, or a Bas Kohen is marrying a Yisrael, those are the only times who the ikatzat kahuna, because one of the parties, either the Chassan's family or the Kala's family, is a Kohen, so you're allowed to demand a bigger ksuva. Aval Bas Yisrael lo, but this implies that if a Bas Yisrael was marrying a different Yisrael, since none of them are Kohanim, they wouldn't be allowed to demand and receive the bigger ksuva. So lomi bay kamer. No, so the Gemara. So sometimes the Gemara answers this way, that a Mishnah was saying lomi bay. It's not just this case, but also in that case. Lomi bay bas Yisrael Yisrael de lo matzi amar lehu aloyu kameluyun lach. It's not just, certainly it's not a problem of a Bas Yisrael marrying another Yisrael, because in that case he's not allowed to say, or neither of them is allowed to say, because you're marrying into my mishpacha, I'm making your mishpacha more important also. Avobas Yisrael Kohen Dematzi Amarla Luya Kamelina and Lach Emalo, but for a Bas Yisrael, for a Kohen, that he's able to say, I am, because you're marrying into my family, it's more covered to your family. I might say, lo, they're not allowed to demand a bigger ksuva. So Kamash Malan, it tells us that in both cases they can do a bigger ksuva. Okay, Mishnah. Hanosis Ishavla Matzla Basulim. If someone a man married a woman and he found that she was not a virgin, he omers misha eras tani nanasi v'nistachlos today. She says, we saw this a few on the previous Amud, with this Mishnah was quoted. She says that after I got engaged to him and he gave me the ring, I was raped, and it was just a case, where his field was flooded and it's bad luck. But I didn't mislead him. I was a besula when we got engaged. But he says, no, this happened even before I was engaged, and therefore my kinyan was made under false pretenses. If I would have known the information, I would have gotten married. Here, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Omrim, Nemenis. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Lezer say that we believe her, and it's no makachtos. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Lo Mipi Onachayim. Rabbi Yeshua says we don't live. Literally means we don't live from her. Meaning, what do we know? Why does her claim have any extra strength than his claim? So, I mean, even though her claim is reasonable, why would we necessarily believe it? Ella harezu b'cheskes bula achlo tisaris v'itasa. So we have to, that Rabbi Yeshua holds that she's in a case of now, she's in a case of she had not been a virgin at the time of the wedding, and she had misled him. Unless she can bring witnesses, whatever, to prove it, and she misled him, and therefore the wedding was under false pretenses. So the Gemara says, Itmar. So now this is a case we're trying to. So basically, right now we're learning about cases of believability. You make one claim, the other guy makes another claim. Whose claim is stronger, or is no one's case stronger? So we're going to talk about a case of where they're disputing over a monetary dispute, and we're going to see if we can use the rules of the monetary dispute in the case of here, which is where I mean this case does involve the monetary dispute, because according to her claim, she would still stay married and have a ksuva, and according to his claim, the whole wedding was under false pretenses, and the kinyan is as if it never took place. So there is a monetary element in this, but it's not exactly the same. So Itmar, we learned in Bava Kama, the end of Bava Kama, and in Bava Metzia, and in Bava Basra, Mana li bi'adacha. Someone says, I lent you money or whatever, or whether it was a loan or whether it was a pikadon, but he says, you have $100 of mine, I want it back. The other one says, I don't know. I don't remember getting the money from you, but it's possible. I don't know one way or the other if I have your money or not. Rav Yehuda of Rav Huna Amri Chayev. Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna says that the guy has to pay the first guy $100 because he doesn't deny it. He doesn't agree to it, but he doesn't deny it. Rav Nachman and Rav Yochanan Amri Pater. Rav Nachman and Rav Yochanan say that he does not have to pay. So what's the reason? Rav Huna of Rav Yehuda Amar Chayev Bari V'Shama Bari Adif. Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda says that the guy has to pay because the other guy made a definitive claim. Bari means I'm sure. He says, I'm sure that you have $100 of money. And the other guy said, maybe. He says, it might be right, might be wrong. I don't know one way or the other. So the definitive claim is stronger. Rav Nachman, Rav Yochanan, Amri Pater, Uki Memona B'Cheskas Ma'arei. Rav Nachman, Rav Yochanan say that the person does not have to pay back because the money should stay in the pocket of who has it right now. And since this guy has it right now, the other guy's claim isn't strong enough to obligate him to pay him. So there's a so the first opinion held that a definite claim is stronger than a maybe claim, and Rav Yochanan, the second opinion, holds that since the money is in your pocket, you didn't do anything. Your claim that he has your money isn't strong enough to take it out of his possession. Because remember, in a non-halachic sense, possession is what, 9/10 of the law? Is that what they say? It's 9/10 of the law. So since you have 9/10 of the law because you have the money, his claim isn't enough to undo the possession of the fact that you have the money right now. Amalei Abai Rav Yosef. Abai asked Rav Yosef. Had Rabbi Huna Rabbi Huda the Shmuel. This opinion of Huna Shmuel and Rabbi Yehuda that the maybe claim that the definite claim is stronger than the maybe claim, that follows the opinion of Shmuel. It's not because you learned in the Mishnah. If a woman was pregnant, they said, "What's the status of the fetus?" So, meaning it seems that the woman was alone and there's in a new place, and she didn't have a husband with her. So we don't know: is she a single mom? Was she widowed? What's the status? So we ask her, and she says, she says the father is so and so who's a Kohen, meaning he's a kosher Jew. Rabbi Gamliel of Rabbi Elazar Omrim Ne'emanes. I think this is a Mishnah coming up soon also. So Rabbi Gamliel of Rabbi Elazar said we believe her, and the kid is a kosher kid. Va'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Gamliel. And Yehuda said the name of Shmuel halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel. Va'amar le Shmuel bar Yehuda Rav Yehuda. And Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda said to Rav Yehuda, Shinina, sharp one, Amar la mishmei de Shmuel halacha Rabbi Gamliel afarishona. You told us that halacha follows Shmuel even in the first case, meaning in this case, in our Mishnah. Because if you turn the page to Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, just more than halfway down, that's that case. So it's a similar Mishnah to our case, but slightly, but the same machlokas. The case was a little different. The case was, the case was if she's pregnant. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But this is the last part of the Mishnah. If she was pregnant, then you said, "What's the status of your fetus?" Because you're pregnant right now. And he says from so and so who's a Kohen. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar say we believe her, and Rabbi Yeshua says we don't live from her. We believe that the kid would be a Suffolk mamzer or whatever, or a mamzer, until she can show us that the kid is really kosher. So it's a similar machlokas. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar saying that we believe her, and Rabbi Yeshua saying we don't believe her. So you told us in the name of Shmuel that halacha is Rabbi Gamliel, even in the first case, meaning in our Mishnah, where they're just arguing about the ksuva. So my afarishon, what does it mean even in the first case? Even though let the money stay in the possession of its owner, meaning right now, did the husband have to pay the ksuva yet? No. So the ksuva money is in the pocket of the husband. Amar la Rabbi Gamliel bari adif. Rabbi Gamliel says that the certain claim is stronger because she said in a definite, he says, you're not a virgin. It must have been before the wedding, and therefore you deceived me. And she says, no, she made a definitive claim. No, it was after we got engaged, I was raped. So because her claim is definite, we believe her. So the Mishnah would follow this. So according to Shmuel, we follow like Rabbi Gamliel because of her claim is the certain claim, and his claim is maybe. Right? He doesn't know when she lost her virginity, and she's saying that it was after they got engaged. So her claim is the stronger claim.
So she doesn't know when she lost her virginity?
She knows, but the husband says she's not a virgin. It must have been after, but before we got engaged, and she deceived me by not telling me. Therefore, we shouldn't be married. I don't know if to owe her any ksuva. So that's a maybe. He doesn't know for sure, but she's saying no. It was definitely happened after we got engaged. So therefore her claim is the certain claim and his is a maybe. He can't back his up with anything, even though she's not backing it up with anything, but because her claim is a certain claim and his claim is a maybe, because he might know maybe it was before, maybe it was after, but he's assuming that it was before. So his claim has some, wiggle room. He doesn't know what it is. So therefore her claim is stronger. Blame Rav Yehuda, Rav Huna, da Amri Rabbi Gamliel. So let's say that Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna, the Amoraim, they hold like Rabbi Gamliel in our Mishnah. Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yochanan, da Amri Rabbi Yeshua. So let's say that the Machlokas Amoraim, if the strong claim or the maybe claim, the stronger claim is better, that follows the Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar's opinion in our Mishnah. So basically we're saying maybe the Machlokas Amoraim is a rehash of something that was originally a Machlokas in a Mishnah. So the Gemara says no. Rav Nachman, who held that the money stays in the possession of the current owner, he says, no, I could even hold like Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel only said his claim because there's a megu. Now, a megu is, the basic idea of what a megu is that you should believe my claim because I could have made a different claim that would have been better. So from the fact that I made a claim that wasn't as good, that adds authenticity to it. Just as an extreme example, and I don't know, if the guy says, you owe me money, he says, no, I don't. Okay, so then we have an argument. We don't know who to believe, him or we believe him. But when the second guy says, I don't know, yes. So from the claim saying, I don't know, we could believe in that. I don't know, because if he wanted to deny it completely, he could have denied it completely. So from the fact that he's not using that claim, it adds some authenticity to his claim. So the way the art scroll translates it, it almost makes the Megu like a supercharger or a turbocharger. It doesn't mean that you're telling the truth, but it adds more validity to your argument. Because so Rashi says, she says I was raped. So Rashi says she could have given a better claim. I didn't lose my virginity to any human. I got injured against, a pile of rocks or against a stone. So because she didn't use that excuse, that adds more authenticity to her saying that I was raped after we got engaged. But in the case of them arguing about who has the money, there is no megu. So inami, or another way that his claim doesn't necessarily follow Rabbi Yeshua, is ad kan lo kam Rabbi Gamliel hasam ela da amrinan ukmei chazaka. Or maybe Rabbi Gamliel says that the woman could keep her chazaka that she had been a besula. But here, there's no chazaka. We know that the woman definitely had been a besula at some point. We don't know when she stopped being a besula. But in the case of money, we have no clue if money ever had changed hands in the first place. So maybe the first guy who says that you have my money, maybe he never had the money and never possessed the money in the first place. But the woman, we know that she was a besula at some point in her youth. Hachinami mistabra. The Gemara says this also makes a lot of sense. Because we answered to Rav Nachman Hudamer Gamliel. Because Rav Nachman said his statement went according to Rabbi Gamliel. The imkain, because if not, kasha hilchasa, there'd be a contradiction between how we paskin. The kaimalan hilchasa Rabbi Nachman bedini, because we have a general rule that in monetary disputes we follow Rav Nachman. But here, Rabbi Yehuda sent the name of Shmuel that we pass like Rabbi Gamliel. If Rav Nachman, like we thought, felt like Rabbi Yoshua, then there'd be the general rule would have a contradiction. Because Rav in this case we pass like Rabbi Gamliel, but Rav Nachman, who has the opposite logic of Rabbi Gamliel, we follow him too. That doesn't make sense logically. So So we have to say, like we explained, that Rav Nachman says that case is different than the monetary case. In my monetary case, we reject this claim, but in the case of the woman, we wouldn't reject her claim because either there's a previous chazaka that she had been a virgin at some time, or that what was the other because of the megu. She could have made a better claim and say that she didn't lose her virginity to a human at all. It was just due to an injury of mukaseitz. Okay, let's just continue a little bit, few more minutes. Mishnah. She says, I'm not a besula because I was injured by either a pile of rocks or by a wood. But he says, no, you lost your virginity because you cohabited with a human male. Meaning the difference is that did she ever have a sexual relations before or not? According to him, he's saying she did. Whether it could have been a rape, but he's saying it was sexual relations, and she's saying no, I never had sexual relations with anyone. I lost the besulam was damaged by an injury. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Omer Nemenes. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer say we believe her. Rabbi Yeshua, Omer Lo Mipiano Chaim, El Rei B'Cheskes Drusasi Shashatevi Rabbi Yeshua says we don't live by her. We have to assume worst case scenario until she can verify her claims that she was a besula and she lost and she became not a besula due to an injury with an inanimate object.
I'm totally confused.
Yeah, why?
It's not verified by any case. At this point, if she was injured, whatever, or in any case, if the husband claims that she was
right, but no, but because so let's say
verified.
So that's the thing. So the thing is that at the marriage, the sheets on the bed had absolutely no blood on them.
Okay.
So he's saying we see that she's not a besula. Now the question is either when did she become not a besula, or this particular Mishnah is what caused her to not be a besula. If it's from an injury to a pile of rocks or a stick, then she would have to say right. So meaning there's a medrash that says that that when Rivka saw what was on the camel with Eliezer and she saw Yitzchak, she says she fell off the camel, whether he was so handsome or this or that. There is a medrash that says when she fell off the camel, she fell on a pile of rocks and she was no longer besula. But I don't know. There's some I don't remember the exact medrash that the birds covered it up, so he didn't know, because if he would have known, he would have married Rivka. Whatever. So there's a medrash that this could have happened to Rivka. So based on that medrash, though, you could say that if she says I was hiking and I tripped and I fell, and my friends were with me and they saw that where I fell, there's red spots there. So that shows that I lost my basulim due to this injury. That would be something verifiable.
So did I.
So
No, but in other cases, it's also it's a bit.
right. So according to Rabbi Yeshua, she would need to bring witnesses to verify her claim. Meaning we're assuming the worst case scenario unless she could verify her claim. So in this mission of the Gemara says Tanaisu b'mai. What are they arguing about? Rabbi Yochanan tzavar b'masai mumana. They're arguing that she wants a ksuva of 200 zuz, and he's arguing I'll stay married to her, but I'll only give her 100 zuz ksuva. Rabbi Lazar Amar b'manav lo klum. Rabbi Lazar says that the machlokas is either a 200 zuz or he doesn't want to stay married to her. He says you end up you're not a besula. You didn't tell me. You should have told me. So I wouldn't have married you had I known, and so therefore you wouldn't get any ksuva. That's what the machlokas is, between 200 and 100 or between 200 and nothing. Rabbi Yochanan says the machlokas says she wants to keep a 200 zuz ksuva, and he's willing to give her only 100 zuz. Savalak Rabbi Meir. He holds like that. Our Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir. The Amar bein hikirba bein shelo hikirba masayin. That whether the chassan, we saw this I think last week, whether the chassan knew that she had lost her besulim because of this injury, or whether he doesn't know, she still receives a ksuva of 200 zuz. Rabbi Elazar Abar b'manav lo klum. Rabbi Lazar says it's either 100 zuz or nothing. Several like Rabbanan, he holds like the Rabbanan, the Amri bein hikirba bein shelo hikirba, that whether he was informed of her injury or not, mana, she only receives 100 zuz ksuva. So that's from this machlokas Rabbi Meir we saw last week. Bishlam Rabbi Lazar lo kamer like Rabbi Yochanan. We understand that Rabbi Lazar won't say like Rabbi Yochanan the kamuki like Rabbanan, because he holds that the Mishnah is according to the Rabbanan. Meaning, if you would have a choice to say that the Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir or the Chachamim, it's better to explain a Mishnah like the Chachamim because that's a majority opinion. And Rabbi Meir is not a majority; he's one person. El Rabbi Yochanan, my time Rabbi Lazar. But why did Rabbi Yochanan not say like Rabbi Lazar? Why did he say that the Mishnah is going only according to Rabbi Meir? So we answer, Kesavar, he holds, he holds that if a man married the woman assuming that she was a besula and it ended up that she was not a besula, they stay married and she only have 100 zuz ksuva. But hachahu kamar mana v'hi kameres mana. But here he's demanding a 100 zuz ksuva, and she's saying 100 zuz ksuva. Ma'ika bein taina didei l'taina dida. If according to the chachamim she gets a ksuva of 100, he's offering her 100, she's offering 100. They don't have an argument. I want 100. No, I'm only going to give you 100. That's not an argument. There's no difference between their claims. So it doesn't make sense that according to the Chachamim, that they would make, that there was nothing to argue about. Therefore, he had to say that it must be according to Rabbi Meir, that according to Rabbi Meir, she says that it was that a mukas 8, she retains a ksuva of 200 zuz.
So it's all about the piece of paper, right?
Right. The potential in case that she would get divorced, she would have 200 zuz.
They don't want to get divorced. They just put something in paper.
So again, I would say that this has to do with the fact of the divorce problem. She thinks that because of his, he might be a little bit of a hothead, and so 100 zuz may not be enough to keep him from getting impulsive and writing her a divorce. But if she would have a 200 zuz ksuva, she feels more secure. Because he's going to have to pay so much. If he divorces her, it's cheaper for him to stay married and not divorce. So maybe it makes her feel more safe to have a ksuva of 200, more secure. So Bishlam Rabbi Lazar, we understand according to Rabbi Lazar that if she's not a besula, she doesn't get any ksuva like the chachamim hainu tiktani tarti. That's why we have two different cases in our Mishnah. Chada lafuke mid Rabbi bar Chama, v'chada lafuke mid Rav Chia bar Rav and Amar Rav Sheshes. Because we had two different cases. El Rabbi Yochanan tarti lamali. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, why are there two separate cases? About our Mishnah versus the previous one, the one we saw last week, and where the husband was claiming it was a mekach tos. So the Gemara says, so we need two different cases. One to show that Rabbi Gamliel believes her, even in a case where it's less likely to believe her. And the other case to show that Rabbi Yeshua that we don't believe her, even in a case where it might be more likely that we shouldn't believe her. The first Mishnah tells us the strength of Rabbi Yeshua. The apagav the ikal lameimar megu. Even though you could say there's a megu, she says that I got raped, and he could have, but that was with a megu, because she could have said I was a mukas eitz, and got a bigger and it would have been a more verifiable claim. So even in that case where she has a megu, Rabbi Yeshua says we don't trust her. Lo mehemna, she's not believed. That's right. So the second Mishnah, our Mishnah tells us the power of Rabbi Gamliel, the apagav the lake lameimar megu, even though she has no megu in this case. Mehemna, still she is believed. Okay. So the Mishnah in the middle of Yigdam Aleph here. Yashukach.